Now we're going to go over chapter 3, where we are now introduced to masculine nouns, boys and men. And so, what you need to understand is that all nouns belong to categories. These categories are called declensions. When we encountered only the feminine girls of chapters 1 and 2, they belonged to what's called first declension, and they had as their subject nominative endings a for one and more than one ae. In this chapter, we're going to learn that if it's a masculine noun, it's what we call second declension, and they will end with us as a singular subject. Now, there are 6 nouns that do not end with us, but happen to end with the letter R. In this chapter, we have 2 of them, and those are the words we're and puer, and we're going to become known or familiar with ager. They have no ending whatsoever, but that R tells me that they are functioning as a singular subject, the doer of the action. In the plural, they are going to have then long I. We're going to see examples of that. And as per usual, there'll be embedded items. So let's go ahead and get started. So it says, in pictura est puer Romanus. In the picture, there is, remember, with the T, est, a singular Roman boy. Do you see how the adjective has that us ending? Because it's modifying a masculine thing. The puer, which does not have an ending us. Remember, it was puella Romana, eh? This is a puer Romanus, by the name Marcus, who lives, who is living, who does live. Remember the 3 ways to translate a verb that is present in Latin. Now please note the word who here is different than the word who in the previous chapters. Previous chapters, the 1 and 2, it was quae, Q-U-A-E. But since now we're talking about a boy who, a masculine thing who, it's qui. Etiam in pictura, also in the picture, there is another boy. Remember, not altera puella, but now alter puer. Alter is one of the few adjectives that functions like those nouns and does not have a us ending in its nominative subject singular form. Most of them do, like Romanus. Nevertheless, continuing on, by the name Sextus, who lives, who is living, who does live in the same countrified country house. Marcus had Sextus. Now we have 2 of them. Plural. And so do you see how we have the sunt? They are. And remember that est and sunt are linking verbs, and all linking verbs are equal sign. And so since on one side we have plural, you see masculine and plural on one side, masculine and plural on the other. So A turns into AE when it becomes plural for the feminine. US, or if it doesn't have an ending, it just happens to end with the letter R, has an I. Amici, equal sign. Got to be the same on both sides. Plural masculine, because they're 2 and they're both masculine. Plural masculine with that long I. Hodie. Today, the boys. You see a singular boy, puer, versus the boys. The boys, and the boys are they, not a he. They shout in the garden, and they laugh in the garden, because they, those masculine plural ones, are happy. You see the lighty. That is now going to be masculine. Wir quoque est in pictura. A man, wir, also is in the picture, by the name Davus. Davus, who is a slave. In Italy, there are many slaves, so plural, who work, who are working, who do work in the fields and in the countrified country houses. Pueri, do you see the boys, plural, masculine, are Roman. You've got to have the same on one side. If it were puellae, with an AE, it'd be puellae sunt Romanae. But here it is, pueri sunt Romani. You've got to have the same on both sides of that linking verb. The boys are Roman, but Davus is not Roman. He, she, or it is a British man, so he's from Britain, who now works in Italy, who now is working in Italy. Sextus and Marcus, because they are Roman boys, non laborant. They do not work. They are not working. They work not. Davos works alone. Forgot to put it in there already, but here, your first word of the embedded quiz is redent. Redent, that's your first word. Read it. They laugh, they are laughing. They do laugh. They with an NT. Davos works alone, and that is your second word. The adjective that means alone. It's an alone masculine thing. If it were an alone feminine thing, it'd be sola. So Davos alone works. Davos, angry. There is no he, she, or it. Angry because the boys are shouting and they are running in the garden. Suddenly, subito, the statue falls into the fish pond. There's a word about this now. Whenever you have the word in, and it is followed by, let's say, something that looks like that, or, let me make it a little bit smaller actually, so I can give you an example. In the country house, in the garden. But if you have in, followed by the word that ends with an am, or a um, or even an em, like for example, you could also have in plus am into the country house. In plus into the garden. In plus em into the tree. Versus in the country house, in the garden, or in the tree would be the following. So, do you see the difference? In the tree, in the country house, in the garden, into the tree, em, into the country house, am, into the garden, um. So please note that difference. So remember what we had said. They run in the garden, but suddenly a statue falls into the fish pond. Into the fish pond. Sextus read it, Sextus laughs, ha ha ha. Marcus Quoque read it, Marcus also laughs, but Davos shouts, Abite molesti, go away you pests. And angry, he runs at the fish pond. The boys run out of the garden. Davos groans. That's your third word, but not the final one, because I'm going to explain something briefly after this. Gamut is your third word, but I need to take the time, I think, to explain to you the nature of our series, Ecce Romani, because you are not familiar with it. So, the name of our book is Ecce Romani, which translates as Look Romans. And in these chapters that we are reading, we are following around a family. And this is the family that we are following around. First and foremost, you have the father, whose name is Cornelius. That is his nomen, the larger family name. His full name is Gaius Cornelius, and then he has a cognomen. He is no ordinary fellow. He is a Roman senator, which means that he has incredible wealth and power. He's the top 1% of Roman society, but we read about a family like this because that's who we know the most about. They were the ones who were writing and leaving a record of their lives. He is married to Aurelia, and they have 2 children together that you have encountered so far. You've encountered the boy in this last chapter, Marcus, who is their son, and in the first chapter, you encountered Cornelia, which is their daughter. Now, Flavia is the friend of Cornelia. But then we have a third person that we've encountered, and that is Sextus. Sextus is living with the Cornelian family because his mother, unfortunately, has died, in the previous year in the eruption of Mount Vesuvius. The action of our story is taking place in 80 AD. And thus, in the previous year, an eruption of cataclysmic proportions has occurred where they are living on the Bay of Naples. And the city of Pompeii was completely destroyed, killing Sextus's mom. His father is off at war. And as such, Sextus, because his father is really good friends with Cornelius, stays with them. Because Cornelius is such a bonded friend to Sextus, his father. Now, in this chapter, we've also learned about davus. Davus is a slave, a servus. And exactly as the story says, slavery in the ancient Roman world was ubiquitous, everywhere. In that everywhere that the Romans conquered, they obviously would often enslave many of the people that they have conquered. For example, davus is from Britain. That is because the Romans have conquered Britain and brought back slaves into the Roman society. Now, the last part that you need to know, and I'm going to go to my map to show you what you need, is that on this map of Italy that you see over here, down here is what is known as the Bay of Naples, and that's where the Cornelians are living when we first encounter them. But they have been since, where we are now in the chapter, called to go back to Rome, so they're going to make their way to the city of Rome, which is right here in the middle. So we encounter them at their summer home. They are incredibly wealthy down here at the Bay of Naples, but now obviously they're going to be making their way to Rome, that is here. But we first encounter them down here at the countrified country house. And again, this map of Africa, Asia, and Europe shows the extent of the Romans, and all the way up here is where, of course, davus would have been from. When the Romans conquered these peoples, they would often bring back home slaves to Italy, of course, where they are located, and bring their language and culture to the swath of area that one finds here. And that is your then final word that you will need for this embedded video is empire. E-M-P-I-R-E. Empire. And that is what, of course, the Romans have brought to the whole of the area surrounding the Mediterranean Sea. So hopefully in watching these, you're getting caught up or with a good review. Thanks.